welcome back for another episode of Sneaky Keys. This is my spiritual successor to Hidden Gems, where I talk about those books that you might not be aware of that actually sell better than you actually might expect. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's selection of books, don't worry, I got you covered. This is a bit of a special episode because the boys aren't going live tonight for Saturday night special, so I decided to fill the slot with this show because I had it ready for next week anyway. So I figured I'd film it, drop it early, and give you something to look at this weekend, just kind of fill that time slot. So hopefully you enjoy it. Let me know what you think, like I said, and if you want to see my selection of books, hang out for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so kicking us off this week, I was going to save this, like I said, for next week because that is going to be the release of the fourth game of this franchise, and that is Borderlands. And if you weren't aware, there are a few Borderlands comics, and they do quite well. Granted, some of that pop came from the live-action film that came out a year or so ago, but we might see a little bit of traction once again when the new game comes out next week. With that said, I'm going to give you a quick rundown. It is a short mini-series, so let's take a look at it. We've got issue 1 right here, front and center. We got Ronin, played by Kevin Hart in the film. Looks a little bit different here. Again, this is going to be based off of the game coming out, I believe, on the 12th of September. So we'll see how this does. These things got expensive. Right before the release of the movie, all of these individual issues were like 30, 40 bucks solid for a while. These days, it's a bit cheaper, but still worth your time to go and look for them because average sales are still $18 on this issue 1. That is a first print, while listings for it are also right around the same mark at about 20 bucks. Mind you, there are multiple printings of this book as well, so keep an eye out for those. I believe they're just slightly different miscolored backgrounds, and there is a retailer incentive 1 in 10 that does pretty well and are pretty hard to find that I'm showing you right down there in the corner that you should be aware of, when you're looking for that too, because if you do find a nice copy, though, of that first print, CGCs are asking CGC 9.8s, I should say, are asking $170. So you've got some potential there if you find a nice copy. And like I said, second, third, fourth printings available, as well as that 1 in 10 that I'm showing you on the screen there. That's issue 1. The rest of the series, well, they've also got 1 in 10s, but we're not going to focus there because it's a little bit different, a little harder to find, a little tougher. That might be more appropriate for chasing ghosts because they are not easy to find, those 1 in 10s. But we'll talk about the regular issues here with issue 2. So it's Borderlands Origins issue 2. Now we're focusing on Lilith, and this is about a $15 book right now. Again, it was much higher about a year ago or so. These days, it's about 15 bucks for that first print, but some of the listings are still seeking a bit more, looking for 20 to 25. Again, it's not a property that a lot of people are looking for, but they might be reminded of it when that game, again, hits next week. With that said, this also has a second print as well as a 1 in 10 incentive. There is the RI cover down below. And something to be aware of and something to keep an eye out for because you never know. And the IDW retailer incentives actually say RI after the number. So if you can look closely, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on your screen, but it does say number 2-RI cover. So that's the retailer incentive cover. Doesn't tell you the incentive ratio, which is 1 in 10, but it does tell you that it is an incentive cover right there on the front. All right, so there we go. We've got 2 issues down. It is a 4-issue miniseries, and we are going to cover all 4. So here we are with number 3 with our next installment. This one, again, they all seem to have their own colors scheme as well. We had red, we had blue. Now we're going with the green. This one, a little bit pricier. Recent sales, about 25 bucks. Is it because it's tougher to find or just by happenstance? I don't know. All in all, they're all in the kind of same ballpark at 15 to 25 bucks. So some might be higher, some might be lower. Could be based on condition as well because listings for this book are also in that $15 to $25 kind of range. So once again, not as high as it used to be, but still worth your time to be aware of and keep an eye out for if you can find these cheap enough. I'm not telling you to go online and buy these for 20 bucks. That's not what the point of the show is. The point of the show is, in case you're out there at a shop, at a flea market, at a half-price books, wherever you might be, maybe you see this book listed for cover or less than cover or a few bucks more. Who knows? Your call then at that point. If this is $8 at a shop, do you want to spend $8 for it? It's like 20 to 25. That's up to you. But that's kind of the point of why I do this. With that said, just like the last book, there is a second print and there is a 1 in 10, which is shown right there down below if you're curious about the number 3 RI book. Continuing to roll on, we have one more to complete this series, and that is issue 4. Here as we go with more of an orange kind of vibe here with this background. This one, however, does about 20 bucks. So in that same range. Listings, kind of the same, 20 to 25. So you can see kind of where this thing has landed in the aftermarket now after the film release and with the upcoming game. It's, like I said, 15 to 25 bucks by and large. And again, this thing has 1 in 10 incentive shown right there. Sets, meanwhile, are listed for like 75 bucks. So you can find a discount if you find all 4. Well, depending on what you consider a discount, because, you know, some of them are listed at 25, some of them are listed at 15. So 75 bucks for all 4 issues is what it is. But that's kind of the current asking price for all 4 issues, if you're curious, as a set. But again, there's that 1 in 10, just so you're aware of what it looks like and just something to be aware of, because that is not an easy book to find, especially that number 4. With that said, those are all 4 issues of the mini-series. But before we move on, I do want to give you one to watch, something outside the norm for this book. And we do have this special variant that you should be aware of. This is the GameStop variant that you could get by trading in points at GameStop. Something I know a lot of folks did not do. So a lot of these comics could be tough, but then at the same time, some of them aren't as tough as you might think because they found their way out in the market because the books were printed. So wherever they were being stored, they've eventually, some of these books found their way, these GameStop books, because GameStop for a while was doing a program for a bunch of Marvel titles, as well as some game-related books like this, related to video games, where you could trade in your GameStop points and get one of these comics, which were special limited releases, yada, yada, yada. This book, even though it being a limited GameStop variant, still, it's only selling for like 15 bucks right now. But I think that one sale is a bit of an outlier, because, and a pretty good deal for whoever did buy it, because when you look at what's listed, most of these are listed more in the $50 to $100 range. I know those are big numbers, but again, this was hot once. This was a tough to find variant as well. So I'm more leaning towards the price of this being closer to this than that $15 mark. I think somebody got a bargain. Somebody got a deal with that one pickup the last 3 months for 15 bucks, because that was the only sale I could find. It was just the one, because there are not a ton of these out there. And those that are listed, as you can see, are a little bit more pricey. With that said, I'm giving you a range. There could be books listed a little bit cheaper, some even a little bit higher. I'm just kind of giving you a broad strokes kind of ballpark figure, just to kind of give you an idea of what some of these things sell for and what some of them are being asked for on the market. So just keep that in mind as well with these numbers. They're fluid. Market changes as time goes on. With that said, before we move on, anybody who needs supplies, go over to BCW, use my code RENA10 to save yourself 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your bags, your boards, your long boxes, your short boxes, CGC boxes, you know, your top loaders for cards, pages for cards, basically anything to keep your comics or collectibles safe. There's probably a product over at BCW, and if you're going to spend money on supplies, you might as well save 10% while you do it by using my code RENA10 to save 10% off your whole order. You help out the channel, you get yourself a discount, you got nothing to lose. Now, with that said, what's become kind of a staple feature of this show, I do have to have a segment based off of some second prints. Usually, I kind of tailor them and focus them in on like one character or a title run or something like that. This is going to be a little bit different, as we're going to look at a family of characters, or a couple of characters kind of together, a bit of a crossover, a little bit of a stranger option here. But we're going to look at second prints, and they're going to be Marvel exclusives here. So, with that said, our first one is going to be X-23. That first run of an ongoing series for X-23 did get a second printing here. You got Wolverine all demonized out. Pretty cool cover if you can find it. It's not that easy to find, by the way. But once you do, average sales are unknown, because one of these hasn't sold for a while. Just like I said, some of these things don't move on the market all the time. Some of these things are kind of forgotten about, a little bit ignored, overlooked, but not overlooked by the listings looking for $40 to $60. So it's still not a cheap book if you can find it. It's just none have sold recently. Nobody's picked this up. But even with those $40 to $60, you know, that's the average, because I did find an outlier where someone is looking for 200 bucks raw for one of these. Not saying they're going to get it. I'm just saying, pointing out there is a high ask, an outlier of $200 on this. So take that for what it's worth when you go out there looking for your books. But this is definitely one I keep an eye out for all the time because it's one of those old second prints that got me into collecting those later printings with different cover art, because this is new cover art for this title. Speaking of which, I'm also a fan of those connecting cover sets too. If you know me at all, I've done different shows, kind of spotlighting those, and I've even talked about this second print cover set as well before. But for those who haven't been with the channel, for the years that I've been doing this, this could be new information for you. So I'm going to share it once again, and that is the Omega Effect, a little 3-part story arc, jumping across 3 different titles, starting off first with Avenging Spider-Man. Number 6. Yes, the Avenging Spider-Man title. This was the series where we also got the first Carol Danvers named Captain Marvel, I think it was issue 9. That's kind of like the big book of that run, but otherwise, Avenging Spider-Man number 6 features the beginning of it. And you can guess what this is doing. We have letters, we have some pictures. It's going to spell something out. So, second print, you can see it very clearly right there at the top of the comic, the Omega Effect second print variant on that issue 6. This thing, again, none sold recently. It's not something people have been buying up, but it can ask about 15 to 20 bucks. It's not as expensive as the X23, but still a fun little book just to be aware of, especially if you can get the whole set. So we're looking at 15 to 20 bucks a piece. That's not too bad if you can find this thing for cover price or less. And that's kind of what I'm advising you to keep an eye out for when you're digging in those cheap boxes. So there we go. There's our first part. And as I said, it's a 3-part thing. So let's roll on to the next one, our middle book, which is Punisher number 10. This is the Punisher run where I think I talked about the Opania on the issue 2. I forget what volume of Punisher this is, but this is in the teens, the 20 teens. I want to say like 2014-ish kind of time, or that run. But average sales, once again, nobody's buying this right now. It's just one of those things. It's just none of sold. Nobody's looking for it. It's one of those oddball books. But this one, unlike the last, is a bit pricier on the listings, as average listings are looking more like $35 on the Punisher book. So keep that in mind as well. Punisher gets a little bit of a premium over Spider-Man, I guess, because printing is a little bit lower, fan base is a little more rabid and a little more focused, so tends to lead to some higher prices. With that, there's our middle book, and I'll show you what they look like all together in a minute. But first, I got to give you the last one, which is Daredevil number 11. No, not the first Muse, but Daredevil 11 of an earlier run of Daredevil. So this one, finishing off Omega Effect here, you can see the letters kind of building things out. Once again, nobody buying this right now, so there's no average sales data the last 3 months, but prices are like the first book, like in that $10 to $15 kind of range. It's a pretty cheap book by and large, and Daredevil, I guess, being the least popular of this trio of heroes, street-level Marvel. But when you put them all together, you get something kind of cool. So here we go. We got the Omega Effect all put together, if you can connect them all. There was a time when Marvel did this. There was a Fantastic Four run where they did this. There was another Spidey title where they spelled everything out. It was like Amazing Spider-Man. It's kind of cool when it's all put together. It almost looks like a poster. But there you go. We've got 4 second prints that you should be aware of, but one more to watch, and something kind of in the same ballpark realm of these harsher heroes, I guess we can call them. We have Wolverine's son, Daken. I don't know how you pronounce his name properly. I know you guys are probably yelling at me through the screen, but Dark Wolverine, number 1, part of his son's run. He had the 2 claws with the third coming out of the middle here. This second print, not easy to find, so it goes for a few extra bucks, kind of like that X23, with average sales 25 to 50 bucks right now, while listings are more like 50 to 150. It's big numbers for a second print on this book. There is a pretty cool Delato 1 in 25, I think, on the first printing of this, but the second print is a tougher book to come by with a high listing. Again, this is a listing. Somebody asking $250 doesn't mean it's going to sell for $250, but just to give you context, while the average was 1 to 150, there is a high mark, $250, that I did not work in there. Just pointing it out because it kind of stands out. So keep that in mind. That is like the wishful thinking highest end of what you might find if you can secure yourself a copy of this book. So with that, one more pause before we get to our last chunk of books, and that's to remind you guys about Whatnot. If you haven't tried it yet, first-time users, you can sign up using my link in the description down below of this video. Click the link, get yourselves a free 15 bucks to spend on whatever you want with whomever you want. It's 15 bucks just to try out the app. Hit it up an auction, do a buy it now, whatever. It's 15 bucks, all yours for your first time purchase. With that, you help out the channel. 15 bucks to spend on whatever you like. So again, if you haven't tried it, really, it's nothing to lose. It's free 15 bucks. Now, for the final segment, this is a run of Marvel, I don't want to say one-shots because it's a continuation. It's a series of books, but I always enjoy these because this kind of is right up my alley. If you guys know me and know the things that I like, I'm a big fan of like samurais, shoguns, etc., ninjas, what have you, G.I. Joe, all that fun stuff. But here we have Marvel doing 5 Ronin. This was a series of, I want to say one-shots. Like they're focusing on different characters, but putting the characters, Marvel characters, back into like feudal Japan time. So there we have ninjas and samurais, etc. It's kind of cool. And almost like Star Wars Visions, if you guys are familiar with that over on Disney Plus. But for the Star Wars universe, this is Marvel stuff. Now, this run, I love finding these books whenever I can find them. There are 2 covers for each book. Not incentives, just an A cover and a B cover. A cover and a B cover. Most people expected the B covers to be the ones sought after because they were, the B cover. They weren't the norm. They were probably ordered less, etc. But for the most part, cover A's outpace the B's all across the board on this series. And you'll see why, because the cover A's are gorgeous, where the B's are kind of hit and miss. With that said, let's start with issue 1 here. Wolverine kicking us off on that first issue of 5. Again, just gorgeous. I just like the look of the cover, the design, everything. Wolverine is a samurai. Yes, it's not a stretch. It's a thing we've seen many, many times before. But if you could find one of these, and it's Milligan, so you got Peter Milligan writing this thing too. It's good stuff. This book, this cover A is going to get you 15 to 35 bucks. That's their average sales. While the B cover on this one is only about 5 bucks. So you see the difference. And I'll show you what the B cover looks like as I give you the average asking prices. So I'll give you both, but just remember that cover A's by and large are sought after more than the B cover here, which again, you can see even with the listings that A is looking for 40 to 60, while the B is only getting or asking 10 to 20. So much is a broad range in prices and a big difference between the A's and the B's here. This is the John Cassidy here on the B's, as there's no consistent artist on the B's, while all the cover A's were all done by the same artist. With that, moving on, the next issue, that was our first one. Let's get to issue 2, this time focusing in on the Hulk. So now we have the Hulk and this pretty awesome cover. I think these were David Mack, right? Isn't that who did these? Pretty sure. Or no, these are David Aja. My bad. Aja cover. Duh. Why would I draw a blank on this? Aja, underrated artist, one of my favorites. But these are really cool. And I love the mask behind there with the Hulk. This one cheaper for that cover A. It's only about 15 bucks. Well, I couldn't find any sales of the cover B recently. While listings go a little bit more. Here's the B cover, just so you know what it looks like. This is the Hulk book. Listings on the A are 25 to 45, while listings on the B are only about 10 bucks. And this is a Mark Brooks here on the B cover. So it's not bad, but you can see why I think the design and the consistency and the similar vibe out of the cover A's is what probably makes them more desirable. You got that the cool Japanese flair to it with the layout and everything. You got the the flowers and the branches, etc. It's gorgeous. Here we have our next one, Punisher. Punisher on issue 3 here. Once again, David Aja doing these covers on the cover A, and this one average sales 30 to 60 bucks on the cover A. Meanwhile, the B cover is only getting about 10 bucks. And that's a shame because the B cover is not bad, but this thing, as you can see, just with the focused color and that stripe, and then you still got a little bit of the sketchy outline breaking those borders. I love it personally. I like it. B cover, not bad, but it doesn't have the same impact. But it is still a pretty cool image with the skull kind of being put in the background with the moon and the exploding heads from the slashes of the swords here from the Punisher. Average listings are looking for 50 to 60 on that Aja cover A, while this B cover here only 10 to 20. You see the difference in price? Well, that difference is highlighted, spotlighted, I don't know a bigger word to use, more so on our next book. So here we have the first 3, but issue 4 is probably the big book of the bunch, the one most people seek and sought after because, well, it's Psylocke. And yes, this is a gorgeous cover A. It's not even the B cover. This is the cover A. And It's awesome. I have this book. I look for this all the time. I did not know it reached the heights that it has, because this book has gotten very, very pricey over the last few years, with average sales going for $80 to $200 raw. $80 to $200 raw on this cover A. Mind you, the cover B, which is also a beautiful cover, is only selling for $10. That is a crime, because look at this. Is another gorgeous cover. This is the David Mack. This is why I got confused, because I remember this Mack cover. But this is also a gorgeous cover. But listings, look at the difference in that. That cover A, $100 to $450, while the B only $10 to $25. This exemplifies the range of how far apart the cover A's are from the B's. But I'd look and grab either if I found one out there. Just saying, because I think both of these are gorgeous. With that said, there is 4 issues, but as you know, I've been pointing out, it's a 5-issue run. So our one to watch is really just one more for the road. It's our final book of the run, and it is Deadpool. So Wade Wilson, you can see here, pretty cool, another addition to this series of characters, because you can see how the characters kind of fit into a feudal Japan sort of atmosphere, how they could be written that way. Here we have Deadpool, badass hat like the 3 Storms in Big Trouble in Little China. This one's cheap though, $15 on the A, $10 on the B. That's what the average sales go for. I don't know why it's so much cheaper than the rest, but it is. And listings, well, 20 to 40 on the A, while only 10 to 20 on the cover B, which again, is solid, but it just doesn't have the same impact as the Aja, I don't think. But that's that run of books. I would get any of the 5 Ronin if I came across them. Try to get the full set. Like I said, they're fun read, cool books, cool idea, and some decent prices if you can find them cheap enough. And that's the point. With that all said, that's all I got for you this week. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you found that interesting. Hopefully I gave you some new books that you weren't aware of that you can keep an eye out for when you're out there digging, when you're out there hunting, some second prints, some cool runs with Borderlands and 5 Ronin. That's just the whole point. I'm just trying to spread awareness and talk about some cool books and give you some pricing, so you know some of these things could be pricier than you think. Like you might have come across a Borderlands book or a 5 Ronin and going, what is this? This is some crappy book that's probably just worth like $2. And you can see, no, it's not $2. It's much, much more. But with that all said, hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will be back soon with some more content. All right, later.